The conservatory I'm sitting in is about 15 years old. It served us well. It's a 3 metres by 4 metres lean-to. But we recently decided to insulate and PVC clad the ceiling. And then at the same time we'll take the opportunity to replace the existing table lamp illumination by downlights. So here is the bill of materials. I've listed the source, the quantity and the prices involved. This video clip simply shows the ceiling as it stands at the start of the project, a glass ceiling. Note that there are 3 glazing bars and supports at either end of the ceiling. To these we will be attaching pre-cut to size wooden battens. In the second video clip you'll see one of these mounted, and because I'm doing this on my own, what I've done is I've used 2 other wooden poles to jam the batten into position against the glazing bar so that I can drill the necessary holes for the self-tapping screws. It's important at this stage of the process to make sure that in drilling into the glazing bars, you drill right through into metal, not simply into a plastic covering or casing. Having mounted these first 5 battens, the second stage of the process is to attach the insulation material, and it's 1.2 metres wide by 10 metres long. Now, fortunately, I haven't shown you any clips of me carrying out this process, because if I had, it would have looked like something from Fawlty Towers. It's not the neatest of jobs, as you can see. I possibly should have asked my wife to hold the back end of the roll. I didn't, and I tried to do it in one long piece. It would probably have been easier if I had cut it into shorter pieces and then sealed the joints. And I'm mentioning sealing the joints. At the end of the process of stapling the insulation material onto the battens, it's important then to cover all joints along the sides and between strips with aluminium foil. The next stage is to mount a second set of battens onto the original 5. So you're drilling through the insulation material into the original 5 battens and simply screwing these additional 5 on with ordinary wood screws. In addition to that, we also attach battens at either end of the conservatory to ensure that we have a row of battens covering all 4 edges of the ceiling, because we'll be attaching edging strip as part of the next process. You may have noticed in the bill of materials that there are 2 types of edging strip used. The cheaper one is a one-piece U profile, and the other, when assembled, forms another U profile, but it comes in 2 parts. So the idea is that this stage, when mounting these edging strips, that 2 sides of the ceiling have these single part U strips mounted. The other 2 edges of the ceiling have one part, the base part, of the other type of edging. At the very end of the project, the second part of these edging strips will be attached to finish off the job. Before moving on to begin mounting the PVC panels, I've taken the opportunity to run some of the cabling for the downlights. It might be of some interest to you that because there is a limited clearance between the PVC cladding and the insulation, it's only a 25mm gap. I had the problem of accommodating downlights which might be of a greater dimension. However, having searched Google again, I came across a type of downlight I hadn't seen before, which you'll see in the video clip. It's a tech-led 3-watt LED, and it's really very shallow, ideal for this purpose. Another surprise for me was, over the years when I've involved in any wiring of this type, I've been using screwed connectors, fiddly screws, which tend to drop out and you can't find them. This time I came across a type of connector, a three-way connector, which I'll show you. I hope you can make it out. It's not the best of videos, but it does give you an idea of how easy these connectors are to use, simply by pressing a clamping lever for each of the connections. Having run the cables and connected the lights up temporarily, I switched them on just to make sure that they would work when finally installed. I've also taken the opportunity, which isn't obvious here, but I've marked a position on the surface of the insulation where the 6 downlights will eventually be mounted. Now we get to the challenging part. You will notice from this short video clip that the PVC cladding was much less rigid than I anticipated. Now, this isn't a criticism of the cladding. As you'll see at the end, I'm very pleased with the final result, but it did present a challenge at the mounting stage of engaging the tongue of one panel with the groove in an adjacent panel. And I reckon that even with 2 people, and I wanted to do it in a single length, which is roughly 4 meters, I didn't reckon that even 2 people would be able to manage that easily. So I decided to design a simple swinging support, which you'll see in this close-up. Mounting the first of the PVC panels was comparatively straightforward. It's a case of putting glue onto the battens involved, then positioning one short edge of the panel into one side of the U-shaped edging, and then progressively feeding another of the long edges of the panel into U-shaped grooving, and then finally screwing onto the battens to fix in position. For the next and remaining panels, I used the 3 swinging mounts that I mentioned earlier. They were positioned as shown in this clip, well away from the previous panel, and mounted in the if you like, the passive position. In other words, the body of the swing mount is parallel with the edge of the previous panel. This leaves clearance for the next panel to be lifted up into approximate position, and then for the swing mounts to be swung at 90 degrees in to support that panel. The next panel was then lifted up and one edge placed on top of a mounting which is not so easy to see. There's a mounting rail for the existing vertical blinds, and one edge of the panel to be mounted can be temporarily put on top of that. And likewise at the other end there was a similar mounting for the other edge, and between these in the middle I had a pair of step ladders with a cushion on top, which allowed me to get the approximate position of the panel quite near to where it would be finally mounted. Now, in the next clip I've tried to show the process as it's taking place. The problem is, however, with a fixed position for the camera in very limited circumstances, I couldn't get a full field of view, so please make allowances for that. The first step is to lift one edge and put it into one of the U-shaped strips, the edging strips. Next stage is to lift the adjacent part of the panel high enough to allow the swing mount to come in at 90 degrees underneath to support it, and likewise for the following 2, and finally for the last edge being mounted onto an edging strip. Now, it's only approximately in position at that stage. What I then would do is slightly screw up each of these mountings, simply to move the levers closer to the final position, in a position where it was then comparatively easy to move the this panel, its tongue into the groove of the previously mounted panel. And that turned out, I'm glad to say, to be a pretty straightforward process. The next clip shows the board in question after it has been had the tongue and grooves fully engaged, and have then in effect converted the three swing supports into mild clamps. I've simply screwed them up a bit further to apply a bit of pressure to help with the glue setting. Now, when mounting boards which would later accommodate downlights, it was important to make sure that the wiring was well tucked away so that there would be no damage done when it came to saw cutting the holes through which the downlights would be mounted. That then presents the problem of how do you then get the wiring back out of the hole when it's needed. And this snapshot shows you the arrangement I used, whereby I had a long string, in this case it was actually a grey bootlace, which was tied onto the wiring before it was tucked away, but it was then left dangling so that it can be pulled out at a later stage. This clip shows a downlight being fitted to its driver before being spring-loaded into the hole in the board. Last, all of the lights have been fitted and the two-part edging strips have all been completed and the job is now finished. I must say I'm pretty pleased with it, and in particular I must commend the suppliers of the cladding. I think it looks pretty good. It simply remains now to get the evaluation that matters, in other words, the verdict of the boss. There's my boy. My boy. Come on. Come on. I'm not sure that Dylan approves.